that we do that. One is by making sure we have developed clear paths and program maps for our students so they know how to get from point A to point B. Another way is to make sure that we're ensuring learning along that pathway, and that's where this teaching and learning webinar comes into play. The third one has to do with helping students choose a path, and the fourth one has to do with helping students be successful along that path. So it's my distinct honor today to introduce Melanie Morris and Steve Schwarz, and they will be talking to you about academic integrity in the era of Course Hero. So I know we have a pretty large group with us, and I believe they have some interactive components set up into the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Melanie and Steve. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
35 participants. Will try not to get stage fright. It's great to see you all. Actually, it's great to see you because you're interested in this topic, which is a topic that certainly isn't a new one, but there are rising instances of plagiarism that, and academic integrity that we're going to hope to share with you today. I'm going to do some background, a little bit of information on the scholarship of teaching and learning in this area for about the first 20 minutes of the webinar. Then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Steve Schwarz, who's going to take you on a tour of what's available out there on the internet that you may not have known about. And then finally, we'll talk about some solutions. We do have 2 computers here today, which means we are monitoring the chat as well as presenting. But both Steve and I have shared that we're not necessarily great at multitasking. So if you put a question in the chat and we don't get to it, we'll hope to double back at the end of the session, or you can always ask us offline. We'll share our contact information on the last slide. So my job is to give you a little bit of an overview of the landscape of academic integrity today. Oftentimes when we talk about instances of academic integrity, we have in our mind this idea of egregious acts by people or students with questionable ethics, looking to game or scam our system. We often think of these big acts of academic integrity, and these are some that are probably in your memory because these made the news, not just the Chronicle, but the New York Times as well. And we think about, some of us anyway, think about our job is to sort of sniff out 1 or 2 of those bad nuts, to use the Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory metaphor each semester. And when we find them, we're certain that everybody else is being honest and they've done their job. So if that's what you think, I'm going to ask you to keep a little bit of an open mind as I share with you what some of the scholarship and literature and research says on academic integrity. First, let's talk about how many people do it. So it's not just the 1 or 2 in a classroom necessarily, unless you have very small classes, right, Steve? Don McCabe has done quite a bit of research. He has ongoing research in this area. He's here in our home state at Rutgers University, and his research indicates that on student surveys, 43% of graduate students and 68% of undergraduate students have admitted to some form of cheating in their academic careers. Now, remember, these are self-reports. So if self-reports have any sort of skewed error, we would think that they're not necessarily people that are not cheating, but saying that they are. We think that there are people that maybe underreported their cheating. So these are at least those numbers and maybe higher. And if you read his research as a point of information, you'll find that he goes down to the high school level where he finds 95% of students report cheating. There's also a researcher out there, a behavior economics professor at Duke, who both Steve and I are sort of fans of, shall we say. His findings are objective, controlled experiments of cheating, and his findings reinforce that it's really not a big number of, it really is a big number of small cheaters, not a small number of big cheaters. In fact, in controlled experiments, upwards of 75% of people, when given the opportunity, will in fact cheat or do something dishonest. And another sort of interesting anecdote, not an academic study per se, but ETS and the Ad Council coupled, because ETS was very worried about the rising instances of cheating. And one of the conclusions of their study was that the reasons behind the rising instances of cheating was because cheating no longer carries the stigma that it used to. And we might say that today, but in fact, this was done in 1999. So we've been fighting this battle, aware of it or not, for at least the last 20 years and probably longer. Another area of scholarship that's available is which types of students do it. So when you look at opinion surveys of faculty and administrators about how do people cheat and who's cheating, by and large, faculty and administrators believe that online students are really where the cheating happens, and the cheating doesn't happen so much in the live classroom, and study after study that objectifies this determines that that's not the case. In fact, there's no significant difference in this. The landmark study, which is by Watson and Sotillo, but it has been duplicated in various ways, and the findings remain constant. No significant difference, but cheating at about, you'll see those numbers are up to in the 32-33% range. Rising types of cheating that you might not be aware of. There's 3 rising types of cheating that we have identified as we read about what's going on out there. Contract cheating, which includes courses, sites like Course Hero, which we're going to show you an example of in just a minute, is basically getting somebody else to write your exam, to write your discussion, to write your paper. We also have something that you may not be familiar with yet, article revision websites, which are free, and it's basically you're going to rewrite somebody else's paper. And we have a rising number of sites that offer to sell you the publisher's content and solutions for the textbooks that your professors have selected. So it's time for our first poll. And I'm going to ask Donna to launch that poll just for a moment to give you the opportunity to weigh in on this question. Do you think you could detect a plagiarized work just by reading it? And so we'll give you a few moments to weigh in. And then, of course, I'm going to share the results. So, Donnie, what do you think? Should we share some results? All right, so I predicted
non-committal.
I didn't predict non-committal, but we've got a non-committal group, and maybe we'll get to the bottom of why that is. So good job. I'm going to share with you now what the scholarship says. Thanks so much, Donna, for doing that. Can instructors recognize cheating? The research seems to say no. If you look at how many students say on these same self-reported surveys that they've been caught cheating, those numbers are phenomenally low. Some were around 5% or so of students that said had admitted to cheating have been caught. And then the belief that cheating is more prevalent in online indicates that instructors are maybe picking up on one type, but are not picking up on the cheating in live courses that students report that they are engaging in. But also very interesting is that when we gave our colleagues here at RV the opportunity to sniff out the plagiarized work, actually the authentic student work from 3 decoys, they only did slightly better than 25%. So we're going to share that information with you. It's going to be a fast stream of slideshow, but a lot of text because these are either real or fabricated students' works, but you are going to get the opportunity to have these slides after our session on the New Jersey Center for Student Success website if you really want to digest what we did. So here we go. One of the ways in which we think that students might be submitting work to you is just a direct copy and paste from a website. And so we went out and we took the topic of an authentic student work. It was volunteered to us by a student who released it for this use. And it was on the topic of comparing Jung and Freud. So I went to a website and I got information that compared Jung and Freud, and that was the sample work. To show you that this actually came from a website, I ran a plagiarism report. Now, we don't have Turnitin here at RV. We actually don't have any plagiarism detector campus-wide. So I went to a free one, plagiarisma.net, and I got this report. Now, is it as detailed as Turnitin? No, but it was very helpful in determining, well, this was direct from a website. And it's in fact, found the exact website where I took the snippet from. So again, approximately 25% of my colleagues thought that that was the authentic student work. Is everybody okay with audio? We just got a message that audio is problematic. Audio must be okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Would it much?
It's totally fine. I don't hear any problems at all.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Okay, we'll keep going.
Perfect. The second written example, this particular section came from a website called Course Hero, and I'm just going to ask Steve to chime in and tell you, give you the Twitter version of what Course Hero is.
All right, Course Hero is a website where you can upload assignments that you've gotten in your classes and earn credits so you can download other students' assignments. You can also pay for the privilege of being able to download student work. You can also complete student work for them and earn money and do Q&As with students as well, which I think is just a nice way of doing their work for them. Just being their one-on-one tutor, probably answering their homework questions.
So this actual example came from Course Hero, and just to show you how it appears on the website, and most likely the student did this on a swap basis, the token basis, and you can see that problematically, if you run it through a plagiarism report detector, and this is true the last time I used Turnitin, it doesn't pick up Course Hero. Now, why is that? This document is 100% unique. Why, Steve?
Because you have to have a subscription. You have to log into Course Hero and either have earned credits or purchased a subscription. So any sort of software, plagiarism detecting software, isn't going to have access to anything that's behind either a paid firewall or even anything where you need to log in.
So this is sort of a tricky problem for those campuses that do have those great plagiarism detectors, as well as for campuses like ours, because we're not getting those the search engines to hit up on Course Hero, as you can see. We also have something called an article rewriter. So this, I created this version of the students' work. And it is 100% original, as you can see on my plagiarism detector, but it is not the students' work. So let me tell you how I created this segment to hand it in to my instructor. I first went to a website, and I'm showing you the plagiarism detection results from the data or the information that I got from the website. And you can see that it was only 17% unique, almost 100% from that website. And I took that and I dropped it into an article revision tool, in this case, Smartio tools, but there are so many of them out there now. They're not hard to find. And it gave me an output. And that output, through some algorithm that I don't endeavor to understand, but I'm sure Steve can explain it to you, has gone through and found and replaced words that are rendering this, its ability to outsmart the plagiarism detector. So unfortunately, when I get it out, it's a little mumbo jumbo. So it's 82% unique. As you can see, it says output. I've done nothing but cut and paste it into the revision. But now, if I'm a decent writer, even an okay writer, I can just go ahead and I can change the clunkiness, and you can see how I've evolved the paper from the original work to the website, to the output of the article rewriter, to the revised work, which now is fairly devoid of the clunkiness. And I think somebody had asked, well, your ability to detect this might depend on the discipline. And I would say maybe. I'd have to look at the research to take a look to see if they only, for instance, in this case, you'd think it was a psychology class. They only tested psychology instructors on a paper like this. I'm not that familiar with the specific literature to that level. I'd have to take a look. But I will tell you that although you think this came from a psychology class, it didn't. It came from an English class. So we definitely have these sorts of problems on our campuses. So here's the original student work so that you can see it actually did come from a student paper, and the plagiarism report on that, because I thought you might want to see how it evolved itself. It was, in fact, 89% unique with one hit. Now, I've known about this free plagiarism detection tool for some time. And we've never had a tool like Turnitin here on our campus. So I actually used to use it pretty widely with my students. In fact, I would invite them, instead of a gotcha tool, I would use it as a learning tool. Use this and see how your writing comes out, because if it's coming out as problematic out of a tool, it's going to be problematic when I read it. And let them make their own changes. And I thought that was a really good way to do it. But more recently, we have this problem, and that is they're promoting their essay writing service. So I don't feel good about bringing this to student attention anymore, because the last thing I want to do is suggest that they hire somebody to write the whole thing, which is what Steve's going to tell us how to do in short order. But we'd like to ask you another poll question now, Donna, if you would, our second poll question. So have you ever checked to see if any of your assignments were posted publicly online? So take a minute to answer that. I'm gonna see if I can advance through one slide. I can. All right, Donna, you think we have some results? Let's see. 9 people have, yes, and you found them.
Wow.
Yes, but I didn't find any. All right, so together we've got a little bit more than 60% of you having checked. So good for you. Before I turn it over to Steve, I want to tell you I checked. This, and we'll close out that poll. This is not an assignment that I use. This is a publisher's resource on a class that is not taught here at Raritan Valley, because I didn't want anybody to feel like I was calling out any of my students. So I went to a publisher's resource on a class that isn't taught here. And I got just something from chapter 1 in their publisher's resource. And this was basically, a suggested short answer essay. And I just took it exactly as it was written, and I put it in Google. And you can see that I can get the answer in any of the first 3. I didn't go down more. It was just insult to injury, including the completed test bank for this particular resource. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve so he can show you some of these resources and take your questions on chat.
Okay, I'm just going to swap out the PowerPoint with the live binder. All right. Here we go.
Yep, we're good. I see it.
All right, great. Okay, so this is a live binder and that I created that's related to the PowerPoint, and we actually have a link to it in the PowerPoint. So once you get your hands on the PowerPoint presentation, you will be able to access all of this material. So you might be thinking to yourself that students have to really dig deep in the dark web to get their hands on somebody who will help them do their homework for them, write their research papers. But I'm going to show you just how mainstream this is. We recently discovered that Twitter is a hotbed for finding people to do your work for you. So this first image is from Twitter, and this person, Ian Frost, just randomly wrote on Twitter, "Will pay somebody big boy bucks to write my research paper." So you could see, the hawks were flying overhead. They stormed right in. "Hey, have you found someone to do your paper? If you haven't, kindly direct message us." Supreme Writer. And here's another organizations. These aren't individual people. I believe these are companies that are trying to sell their wares. Just for a small amount, 100% plagiarism free, delivered on time. And then there's Speedy Writers, Essay Shark. You could see that there are just multiple companies that are just publicly flaunting their solicitation of business. And I just went to a few of their Twitter pages. So this is Writer SK. I'm a professional academic writing agent, dissertations, research papers, and actively soliciting business. Here's another one. Here's Supreme Writer. They have 854 tweets, most of them promoting their own services. Speedy Writers, again. So this person, Ruby, posted on Twitter, someone got me drunk last night when I was supposed to write a midterm paper. I'm suing. Speedy Writers jumped in and said, hello, we can help you with that. Send us a DM or email us. So just a random sort of look at me, I got drunk last night tweet becomes, you know, so now we have people soliciting to make things better for them. I'll pay someone to write my 5-page research paper because blank this. And then I'm your essay guy chimed in, LOL just hit me up. So you could see they're doing searches on Twitter, trying to find people who've typed in research paper, write research paper, and then they're coming right in. And here's just some other, there's Apple Writers, there's Alex Turner soliciting. So it's very mainstream, it's out there. Assignmentwritinghelp.net, I included this link because this lets you know how much you pay. And you can see here that writing from scratch, they don't have it included here, but this is by page. So if you have, say, 2 weeks to get your paper done, I don't know how they differentiate between college and university, but the university is $2 extra per page. Well, let's say you're at a 2-year college and you have 2 weeks till it's due, 5-page paper, 39.
I know,
65.
Mathematicians.
So $65 it would be. So for a 5-page paper, and that's you know, that's not really a lot of money. If you're imagining that something like this would cost, you know, hundreds of dollars, it's not. I mean, obviously, if you have a 6-hour deadline and it's a master's degree paper that needs to be 10 pages, now you're talking $340. But that's writing from scratch. They also have rewriting services. So let's say you're not happy with your draft, you want it, you know, things moved around. Again, this is their pricing. You can see it's less. And then, of course, editing, which would be, you know, just sort of fixing grammatical and spelling errors, punctuation errors. Oh, no, that's proofreading. Proofreading is the final stage. So what is editing? Correcting grammatical, spelling, punctuation, vocab. All right, and formatting errors. So they really differentiate this into 4 levels. And you can see as you get closer to the finished product, it is less and less and less money. And there's also No Need to Study is another player out there. And let me copy this link. I've had a little issue with that site. So we'll just move on for No Need to Study. There's EduBirdie. And EduBirdie, these are actually screenshots. I indicated that I wanted a computer science paper, 5 pages long, with 8 cited resources in MLA format. My deadline was about a week from the date I took the screenshot, and that would cost me, well, it depends on who I chose. And there were various people who were volunteering to write the paper for me, from the Intellectual for $152.70 to Dr. Ellison, PhD, $148.64. I find it extremely hard to believe that this is actually Dr. Ellison. This is actually her picture. That's her real name, simply because you're really putting yourself out there and really inviting yourself for some very negative publicity, especially if you're employed. I did a Google search on Dr. Ellison, PhD, and came up with very little, which wasn't surprising. There's also Essay Shark. And again, these are just scratching the surface. I could probably have 100 tabs for each of these. What's nice about SA Shark is that they actually show you some sample papers that they write. And unfortunately, I've read through a couple of them and really thought that the quality was pretty poor. So maybe giving a sample isn't necessarily the best idea. All right, so from buying term papers online, you can also pay somebody to take your online course for you. No need to study seems to be a little bit wonky, so we'll just go right to online class help, and they will tell you about their services. So you offer an entire course package deal. See, all these sites also, yeah, all these sites will all have those little support AI widgets pop up, because once they have you on their website, they do not want to let you leave, so they will press you. So do you offer an entire course package deal? Of course, but that largely depends on how much work is involved. It's different from one to the next, so you need to call them. A lot of these websites want you to call them to get pricing, and I really want to work up the nerve to do that. I just haven't been able to do so yet, to actually call them up, pretend to be a student, and find out how much it would cost to take my online class. So of course, if you are paying somebody to take your online class, you're worried that you're going to get caught. So they want to know, so of course you want to know, will the school know I'm logged in from a different IP address? And they've done thousands of courses and never had an issue with IP address. Logging in from another country can be a red flag, which is why we only use tutors who live and work in the US. So we don't know how much it'll cost, but we do know that onlineclasshelp.com will actually provide a student, a tutor, to take an entire online course for you. Can you help me out with everything, including discussion posts? Yes, we can help you out with everything from A to Z. So you don't know if your students are your students or if there's somebody getting paid from onlineclasshelp.com. Homework help, not quite as awful as paying someone to take your online course. Nevertheless, a lot of places where you can get help. Reddit is a popular discussion forum group online. Many subtopics. They have a subreddit called Do My Homework. And it does not want to let me copy this, so reddit.com/r. All right. Okay. So what you have here is a subreddit. Anybody can post stating that they're willing to pay for you to do their homework for them. Now, you need an account to post on Reddit, but on this particular subforum, you are pushed through a proxy, which means there's no way to know who is posting requests to have their homework done. So this student here is willing, and it was just submitted 4 minutes ago, which is why the Hawks haven't jumped in, but $150 this student is offering for someone to do their Java assignment by Sunday, this coming Sunday by noon.
You could do that, Steve.
I could, and I might, once we log off, throw my name in. No, I would not do that. That's awful. That's awful. So it's a university level data structures and algorithms class. There's a PDF explaining the assignment right here, a zip file for given to help the assignment, which must be used. And if you want to do this work, you actually reply to the post. So if you're a tutor willing to get paid money for this, then you're exposed. You post here, and then the original poster will direct message the person who's willing to do the assignment, and then they complete the assignment, and then the original poster pays the tutor. So a lot of these are tech-based, but not necessarily. Here's someone offering $700, Intro to Managerial Accounting. This is the largest amount I've ever seen offered on this subreddit. And some homework assignments, handful of quizzes, and 3 tests, $700. So let's see. Nobody's jumped at it yet. So I'm guessing though.
Minutes ago.
Yeah, I give it a little bit more time. Let's try to find one before we move on. I still have a few minutes. Okay. All right, so here's one with 4 comments submitted a day ago. Hopefully one is from an actual tutor. So this is for a C programming class, and Prasha too, who I see on every computer science related post, says I should be able to do it ASAP. So what the original poster would do would be to direct message Prasha. They would work it out. Prasha submits the work and Prasha gets paid. All right, and then Course Hero we already talked about. This is the page where you can read about earning credits. So let's say you want to earn credits so you can unlock content that's online. You upload resources and rate and review content. And that'll get you access to materials. But what if you want to earn money through Course Hero? Then you also upload documents and you can create Q&As and answer homework questions. So a student has a question on a homework assignment, instead of looking up the answer themselves, they can simply come here to Course Hero and ask someone to do it for them. Now, Course Hero supports academic integrity, supposedly. So you're not supposed to copy Course Hero content and submit it as your own work. Yet they provide you with completed research papers and homework assignments. You shouldn't use recordings from a class or lecture, or don't use study materials or tutors to complete test or homework assignments when instructed not to use outside help. Of course, they're not aware when you download something, they don't know what the parameters of an assignment is. So this is just how Course Hero saves face. They now have you can search through Course Hero by college. So here's Raritan Valley Community College's Course Hero page, and the first thing I looked at was an assignment. Please write up this Java program using the guidelines provided on assignment sheet. So here's an assignment sheet, basically to write a computer program in Java. And here's the assignment. And I wanted to view the answer. Here's the start of it. Now I can't see the whole thing, but I can kind of see it in this little screenshot over here. This person wrote the entire Java program. So this was a lab assignment, a homework assignment, either counted as a lab or a homework grade, where basically somebody found someone on Course Hero to do the work for them. So I know what they're saying about academic integrity, but if you can go to a website, ask someone to do your homework for you, and through a paid subscription model, paying Course Hero or providing them with your own content, then I don't know how much academic integrity is being supported. I think even a little bit scarier is Chegg. I think we all know about Chegg through the fact that they sell used textbooks at a very reasonable price. And in fact, a lot of faculty recommend Chegg just to save their students a few bucks. But they also have a new service where they allow you to ask questions on homework assignments. So if you become a member, a paid subscription, if you pay for a subscription, I believe it's about $15, $16 a month, you get to ask 10 homework questions every month. So on any subject imaginable, and you get 30 minutes of online tutoring where you have somebody help you who ostensibly is going to not just show you how to answer a question, but actually do the work for you. So Chegg is a player here, just to show you that, Chegg isn't exactly on the up and up. Look at the title of this email I received. Professors out to ruin your life. See all the ways Chegg can help. So if that's not tailored on empowering students to sort of beat the system, I think that title pretty much implies that. So we have some faculty resources in the live binder as well if you want to read more on the topic. Some very interesting articles, how to stop cheating in college, designing assignments to encourage integrity. But Melanie's actually going to talk more about all of those topics. So this is, if you want to...
Before you leave,
Sure.
a question. What are the instructor resources under the link in Course Hero? Are you back? Can we go back to Course Hero?
Sure, that would be in homework help. Where were the links?
Go to the Course Hero website.
Under RBCC style?
Yeah, try that.
All right.
Is there something there that says instructor resources?
Well, they want I can tell you that they want instructors to join and they want instructors to upload content. And I think it's just to sort of validate their presence, but I don't really know. I can't imagine any reason why any instructor would upload material and say, hey, forget the college's LMS. I want you to go to Course Hero and download this from there. All right, maybe you're, I think it's just to sort of give the illusion of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I don't even think I need to look at it to come to that conclusion. So at this point, we're ready for poll number 3.
So Donna, you want to give us a third poll? We're going to pull that PowerPoint back up as you're showing that. So the poll is, are you concerned that your students might be using research papers from online sources or submitting spun papers? A minute to answer that, not a minute, 30 seconds. You're a quick study group. All right, Don, what do you think? Do we have some results? Oh, we got a lot of suspicious folks out there. And I like the 8. Thank you for saying that. Well, now that you mention it, so we've converted.
We've done our job. Yeah. We've done our job.
Right.
Even if it was just one.
And I definitely want to have the class where you're not worried about it. So that's awesome. So thank you, Donna, for sharing that. Before we leave you and not leave you, but open up to questions. We wanted to save about 10 minutes to questions, and we look like we're running right about on par. We wanted to talk a little bit more about the prevention, right? So here we know of all of the possibilities that exist out there. Probably none of us has a suspicion that this is going to be a closing field, but a widening field. It's certainly, some of these sites have grown astronomically in the past few years. So what can we do? So one of the things that we can do is we can promote the culture of academic integrity on your campus. And if your campus is not, doesn't have an honor code, isn't really focused on academic integrity or even understanding the impact of issues of academic integrity yet, you can still do it in your classes. In the research, it's very clear that an honor code, not in and of itself, but an honor code that becomes part of the culture and the identity of your classroom will make a difference for students. That's been borne out, especially in Dan Orelli's work. There's a tab in our live binder, which we will share with you, that has his TED Talk, and he'll talk about how it is that he prompts those 75% of cheaters to not cheat anymore, and what the process is for that. Also, you might want to let students know that you do not want them to share your materials with others. Now, here's the lawyer in me talking. You own certain materials and there's other materials that you don't own. So you definitely don't own the student's work, but you do own your own materials. And it's okay for you to let students know that you expect that they're going to be using your work and the information that you give them and the handouts that you provide and the assignments that you give for their own educational benefit and not share them outside the course. So I put a potential copyright statement in this slide. If you like it, use it, tailor it. If you hate it, don't use it. It's all fine with me. But these are some ways in which you can put students on notice about what you value in your course and to begin to craft the academic integrity in your classroom. And of course, the other way to do it is to not put in anything canned, and let your students draft those statements, draft the what can they do with the content in the course, draft that statement, what should they do in terms of cheating and plagiarism in your classes. For assignments, some of the scholarship tends to tell us that some of the ways in which we can have less cheatable assignments, assignments with more integrity, is to use things like writing samples. So somebody commented earlier, it would be helpful if I understood the student's method of writing. Absolutely. Some of us, I don't know how many students Steve sees. I can see 200 in a term. I want to give a research paper. I know I can't do 2, but maybe I could have a writing sample in the beginning of class that I will look to in case I have a suspicion. But in classes where there are writing intensive, certainly that makes a lot of sense to gauge the student's voice and style in their writing. Multiple submissions works really well. Different sections at different times. It sort of thwarts somebody doing it all at once, although we're sure that people will adjust for the right amount of money, right? Allow for late work. So some of the reasons why students say, well, they went to this, they resorted to this was because it was at the deadline and they didn't know what else to do, so they had to hand in something. So allowing for late work does eliminate that. I'm not saying with no penalty, but definitely think about whether your late policy is something that might be sparking the instinct to get something in versus get something good. And then, of course, draft your personalized assignments. Problematically, canned assignments are the ones that are going to get several hits. And if you're using publishers' resources, keep that in mind. So publishers' resources, if you're using them, use them as a guide, but not as the exact question. Tailor the question to your class. And then, of course, Google your important assignments.
If there's a publisher test bank, and it's guaranteed to be out there, right?
Right. Well, testbankster.com will tell you that if it's a publisher's test bank, they have it for your purchase. So for tests, same sort of things. Use higher order thinking questions. Don't ask questions that you can Google unless you want them to do that. That I would call a scavenger hunt. There's nothing illegitimate about going and looking up information and bringing it back to a test. The problem is when you don't want them to do that and then you're testing them as though that would be okay. Use alternative versions of exams and don't reuse them. And again, those publishers' test banks are out there. Go ahead and Google those test questions as well. And then what else can you do? So I think Donald asked this question in the Q&A. So here's the answer. If you find that you have work that you authored and that is on Course Hero or any of the other sites, submit a test takedown request. Now, Steve and I can't verify that every single site that we showed you has a takedown request, but if they don't have one, I would contact the webmaster and I would say that I have material that is legitimately my copyrighted material, and I would request that they take it down.
I sent a link to Don. I don't know if it went to everybody. It's a link that talks about if you find copywritten materials on Course Hero. You can fill out a form and they will take it down.
And they'll just take it right down. Yeah. Now, I do know a few people that have done this. They have not been questioned at all. However, be aware that this applies to your work. It doesn't apply to students' work because the student owns the copyright to that. And it also doesn't apply to publishers' materials. You should contact probably your the publisher through the sales rep and ask for them to take action to take it down. Now, can you submit a takedown request even if you're certain it's not your work? Absolutely. And of course, Hero takes it down. That's great. So nobody would say don't do it, but don't be surprised if it's one of those two alternatives and you get a response that says they're sorry, you don't own the copyright and they won't take it down. I think as they become more savvy and we become more savvy, you'll start to get the declines to and really looking at the material. But right now, I've had people submit hybrid. That is, it's there assignment and then the student's answer is underneath it. And I've seen those, at least at this point, come down. So what are some sources to learn more? You don't have to vigorously copy these all down because the live binder utilized in the presentation, which is what Steve shared, is going to be available at this link. And again, these slides are going to be available through the New Jersey Center of Student Success. And so we're going to go to questions very soon, but let me put up our contact information here and our last poll. So Donna, if you would, our last poll, and Steve and I, we're going to talk over some questions. So are you on a campus that is proactively addressing plagiarism, one with an honor code and or a culture of positive conversation that includes students about the value of academic honesty? So we really want to know the answer to this. Let's take a minute to answer that question. Are you proactively addressing plagiarism?
I'd be very surprised if it's not one of these, but I think it is.
Yeah, well, Steve's hesitating to tell you what he thinks.
Yeah, I don't want to.
What he thinks that we would answer. And go ahead, Donna, will you share some results with us so we can benchmark our own selves? Nice.
Oh,
So we have to.
It was going to be almost all no's.
Yeah. So Steve and I want to come to see the 14 campuses that you're on, but it's sort of evenly split. So it looks like some of us have a little work to do, maybe more so after this session. And those of you that are leading the way, we need to hear webinars from you guys next, so we know what we can do that's working well on your campuses. So we have some questions.
We have a couple in the current state. Don DeZotis, who is from RVCC.
Yeah, hi, Don.
In the current climate of alternative facts and daily allegations against public figures constantly shown in the media, do you think that cheating and lying has become legitimized?
I feel like I want to go to a philosophy course. So I'm an attorney. I actually think that this has been going on for some time. So as we look back at the research, we're not looking at the past 5-10 years. We're actually looking back 30-40 years. And the oldest information that I shared with you is from 1999, where they argued then it was just becoming legitimized. But in fact, you can go back even farther and find these sorts of indicia. I know when I was in high school, my high school was hit with several cheating scandals. I'm not going to tell you, now that I said that, I'm not going to tell you what high school I went to, but it's still hit with several cheating scandals. One of the things we didn't include here is Dan Arelli says the higher the stakes, the more likely the cheating. So it's not sort of the person that's sort of coming and they really don't want to be here and they're just here because mom and dad sent them. It's the folks for whom that grade really makes a difference that are going to be more inclined to cheat. The higher the stakes, the more likely the cheating. And so I went to a high school where every point counted. So I don't know. I guess we can all really kind of come up with answers to that question.
I occasionally use case studies from the National Center for Case Study Teaching in Science, where the answers are password protected and can only be accessed by instructors who have been approved to access materials. Do you know if there have been any instances of the answers from this organization being posted on the web?
So, Greg, I don't know about that specific organization, but let me give you another piece of information. So I do know of a source of material that is helpful to students in answering questions in an English course. That was posted by an instructor at Harvard in a web-based format where anybody can access it. So I think, and Steve can chime in too, but that's the problem that you run into. It's not what that organization does, whatever that organization is, but it's what the people who have access to that material do with it. So as soon as many people have access, the more likely it will be to be out there, unless you have a sort of a guild that keeps it under lock and key. Right. My recommendation would be to take a few of those questions, not the answers, the questions, because that's how students do it, and Google those questions and see what you come up with. and see if you come up with answers that are very close to the ones that are password protected.
Right, because if you think about it, let's just talk about book publishing. Publisher will send an instructor's edition for a text, right? That's not for student use. The instructor leaves the book in front of their door. You don't once the instructor, you don't know what's going to happen to that book once it's in an instructor's hand. You know, those book resellers come around, maybe the instructor sells it to them. Next thing you know, that book is being sold to a student, and that student has access to all the materials. It's not an exact analogy, but I think, like Melanie said, once that information leaves a password-protected website, you have no idea of knowing where it's going to go after that. Greg also asked earlier, wouldn't much of detection of cheating depend on the instructor's knowledge about how the student writes? I think there's like in computer science and in many other fields, you might not be seeing enough writing samples to really get an idea.
Right. So in business law, I have one research paper. I have 200 students. So I don't have a really good idea of how a specific student writes. However, if I have one of the structures that we outlined in one of the solutions, which is a piecemeal sort of approach, so they're going to hand in one research paper. I don't have any more writing to read, but they're handing it in stages, that's where somebody like me can start to get an understanding of how a student writes. But it is still 200 students. So I think we have to sort of balance that knowledge with the fact that we're all human too. It certainly hasn't remedied the issue with the literature, because the literature is still showing that students aren't being caught. Any others?
Is it illegal to solicit students to edit, proofread, or do their papers?
Is it illegal to solicit students to edit?
In other words, is it
somebody
illegal to
else's
pay
paper?
somebody? Is it illegal for a student to go on one of these websites and ask someone to write their paper for them for money?
No, not for any reason that I can think of under the criminal laws here in New Jersey. Now, I'm not a criminal law expert, but I can't. It's not theft. It's not. I mean, what would it be? So I can't think of it. It's certainly. It's
deception, but that's not illegal,
deception,
right?
towards what criminal act, and who's the crime being committed against. So what I would say is the best way to do this is through an honor code. Now, there are crimes or federal crimes actually for copyright infringement, where if you're posting somebody else's work as your own, that is a federal crime because that is theft. But that's not so much what we're talking about here. We're talking about really basically a contract transaction for really what we would think would shady or deceptive practices, but I don't know what the crime would be. Yeah, so that's just my initial thought on it. I haven't seen anybody writing about it as criminal.
Instructors tend to reuse, this is Don again, tend to reuse quizzes and assignments or copy a master course from term to term. What should be done to minimize cheating?
Don't.
The problem is we do that. The course computer literacy that he teaches for us, and that's a big problem. So I can tell you what we do with computer literacy is at least in my classes, I minimize the point values for assignments that could easily be copied, and that's the key. And at least and that course is taught online, it's heavy on discussion. It's heavy on discussion. As far as those computer-based projects go, you can have a tool like My IT Lab that will guarantee that no student submission is plagiarized, but there's a heavy price tag on the student for using them.
Elizabeth, more Creative Commons license work. Yes, Elizabeth from Passaic. Hi, Elizabeth. You guys have a great Creative Commons, an OER initiative there. We're not seeing, at least I haven't seen any research in the OER sphere yet that talks about these sorts of problems. But I think as OER becomes more significant and we do have commons areas where we're beginning to share not just our assignments but also our answers. The for us, the problem isn't so much sharing the assignments, but sharing the answers. We're back in the same stages. I think it was Greg that talked about the other organization. So the security is only so good as assuring that nobody else is posting that information online. So I think we're all going to be vigilant, but certainly that's one way to get away from publishers' resources and the numbers, the great expansive numbers of people that might be using those resources. One of the best things, and this goes, Don, maybe somewhat to your point, although you are going to be captive to institutional policy, is I don't know how I would reinvent myself in business law every semester. So what I do is I have 4 rotating assignments, and so that I'm tweaking it. It's never the exact same. It's minorly tweaked, but it's not minorly tweaked from the last semester. It's minorly tweaked from 2 years ago. So I'm hoping that at least slows the growth of the sharing of those assignments out there in the public sphere.
I think we've answered all the questions.
We have. So
we have time for one last one.
So we got 3:58, and it looks like we've answered everything, but drop them in if you still have more. I hear either Donna or Christine.
Yes, I just jumped in. So first of all, if anyone has any other questions, they certainly can go ahead and take a moment to type them in. But I did want to make sure that I had the opportunity to thank both of you, both Melanie and Steve, for a fantastic presentation. I always know it's fantastic when the number of participants grows throughout instead of decreases. So that's a very good sign. Everybody stuck with us, and that was really very great. So you brought to our attention some really important issues that we need to address in our classrooms. I also, for the folks that are on the line, I'd like to let you know that we have several teaching and learning resources on the njstudentsuccess.com website. So if you haven't visited that website, again, it's just njstudentsuccess.com. There are several different teaching and learning resources that we think you might find helpful. And there are 2 related to academic integrity. This happens to be a subject that you're very interested in. There is a presentation that I had done previously on this for faculty, and there's also a presentation that is designed specifically for students that you can borrow and use in your classes if you'd like. It's based on the work of Belter and Dupre, who basically talked about how if you teach students exactly what is cheating and what isn't cheating and what honesty looks like, you can be it often decreases the number of dishonest actions. So feel free to borrow and use any of those. I do not see any other questions popping up, so I think what we'll do at this point is just say thank you once again. The bad part about a webinar is you can't hear everyone clapping, but I see some folks kind of jumping in and saying thanks, terrific, nice job. It was really very well done. So thanks so much to Melanie and Steve. And we thank all of you for participating and hope to see you at future events held by the center. Thanks.